It's a beautiful summer day in Brazil. The sky is blue and the sun is shining. Mr. Jorge Freitas and his grandson are talking. Paulo, his grandson, is 10 years old. They live in the countryside. Their houses are very near. Now Paulo is at his grandfather's house. They are sitting on the house porch. Mr. Freitas likes stories very much. He often tells Paulo stories about legends, strange creatures, forest spirits, and the ancient Greeks. Mr. Freitas has a lot of interesting books in his house. He shows Paulo a story. Paulo asks, "Who is that?" pointing at a picture. "He is Hercules," Mr. Freitas says. "Is he strong?" Paulo asks another question. "Yes, he is very strong. He can kill monsters and other horrible creatures." "Grandpa, I don't like these stories. I prefer television cartoons. They are more interesting than books." Mr. Freitas says, "Paulo, there are things that TV does not teach us." His grandfather continues, "Books can teach us wonderful things. They make us travel through our imagination." Paulo turns the book page. The little boy asks, "What is Hercules doing here, Grandpa?" "Let me see." Mr. Freitas looks at the picture. Then he answers, "Hercules is fighting the Lernaean Hydra." "The Lernaean Hydra? What is it?" "It looks like a snake, but it has a lot of heads." Paulo is very curious now. The Lernaean Hydra is a monstrous serpent with 9 heads. In fact, its 9 heads are immortal and indestructible, his grandfather says. "What is immortal, Grandpa?" Paulo asks. "It means it does not die, Paulo," Mr. Freitas explains. "But how can Hercules destroy the serpent if it doesn't die?" Paulo cries out. "Well, Hercules is a hero then. He must find a way to defeat the monster," the elderly man says. "What does he do, Grandpa?" "He cuts off the snake heads and burns the cuts. So the heads do not grow again. When he cuts off the last head and burns the ends, the serpent dies. Hercules wins. He is really a hero," Paulo shouts and smiles. Mr. Freitas is happy because his grandson is interested in the story. He promises to tell him more stories about Hercules. He also explains to him that the Greek hero has other adventures. "Grandpa, may I take a walk in the forest now?" Paulo asks. Mr. Freitas replies, "I and your mother don't want you to stay away from the house. The forest is dangerous. You can play near here, so I can take a look at you, right?" "Yes," Paulo says sadly. His grandfather gives him a soccer ball. The boy leaves the porch. He goes into the yard and begins to play with his ball. Mr. Freitas watches the boy playing for several minutes. After some time, the old man decides to make some tea. He goes into the kitchen. Paulo is playing with his ball in the yard. His grandfather is making the tea in the kitchen. Paulo kicks the ball, and it goes far away. It rolls down towards a stream. Mr. Freitas says, "What are you doing, Paulo?" Paulo shouts to his grandfather, "Grandpa, I'm looking for the ball." Paulo walks down towards the stream. He can't see the ball, but he sees a path. It leads to the forest. The boy is very curious. He decides to walk along the path. There are a lot of high trees there. They have thick branches and a lot of leaves. As he walks, it gets darker. The tall trees cover the sun's rays with their leaves. Paulo is excited and he wants to know more. Then he keeps walking along the path. The path goes along the stream now. Paulo is close to the stream. He is listening to its water. It is flowing down through the stones. The boy is not paying attention to the way. The trees and their shadows make the place dark. Everything is very quiet there. The leaves look still. The water seems distant, far away. The path is darker and darker. Paulo feels sleepy. He is walking when he feels the ground under his feet moving. He sees the trees turning around very fast. Then he realizes he is in the air. He is falling down.